Welcome in, everybody. It's a whole new year of Esports Weekly. We're so excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. And we want to start with showing you some of the things that are going to be a little bit different about Esports Weekly this year. Instead of what we did in the past, where we had a bunch of casters sit here and give you their same predictions every week, we're going to do it a little bit differently. This year, each caster has two teams where they will be the correspondents of those teams. They will follow every team from right now, the very beginning of week one, all the way through the World Championships. They will be the experts on these teams, reporting to you every week what their practice is like, how they're feeling going into their particular matchups, what they think their challenges might be in the future. We think that this is going to lend an extra level of expertise to a lot of these teams, and we hope that your favorite team can be paired with one of your favorite talent pieces and that you can really look to them for that expertise throughout the year. Of course, we're still going to have all the other extra stuff that we usually do, plenty of interviews with pros and extra content around the SML and the SCL, so don't worry about that. We'll still have all of that, but we hope that you'll enjoy this new format. As for today's show, we've got a really good one for you. We've got, of course, our correspondents in for the Knights, SK Gaming, and Space Station Gaming. They are your week one matchups, as well as an interview with Ataraxia live here in studio. We'll catch you up with everything that's been happening in the SCL and SML if you've missed what happened in the first few weeks there. And I got a chance to sit down with NFL wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin. Big SMITE fan, believe it or not. And we got a chance to talk with him. I think you'll enjoy our quick conversation. So sit back, relax. We hope you enjoy this new format of Esports Weekly. And right on the other side of this break, we'll sit down with Pittsburgh Knights correspondent John Finch.
Hey everyone, Heroic Leap Jay Nash, Evil Mojo Alyssa, and Titan Isaiah here with some exciting news.
Crossplay and cross progression for SMITE,
Paladins,
and Realm Royale is live.
Players on PC, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch can now play with and against each other.
and by linking your Xbox and Nintendo Switch accounts to a high-res account, you'll be able to enjoy all of your owned content and account progress across 3 platforms.
Head over to my.highresstudios.com to link your accounts, and be sure to check out our crossplay and cross-progression FAQ at highresstudios.com/crossplay for more details. We'll continue to forge ahead
on the battleground
and in the realm.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time to talk with Pittsburgh Knights correspondent John Finch. Finch, first of all, you're our first correspondent to join us on the show. How does that feel? Are you setting up everyone up for high expectations or tempering them?
These are going to be high expectations. What's really sad about this is that it's going to be tough for everyone else to come in and follow.
We should have thought of that.
That's how thorough I'm going to be.
Yeah,
so
we definitely should have thought about that. So talk to me about the Knights. They made the move. They're all here in America. This is one of our few full European teams. How do you think that they've adjusted to the move so far?
Well, I talked to them about exactly that, right? Like, how is it feeling for them to be here? Like, what their living situation was. They feel good. Obviously, still some growing pains with being in America for them, but they're in their house. They're situated. Poor Emilzi, I understand that he actually got the short straw when it comes to rooms, so he was the last one to get there. So that kind of stuff is happening. That's all stuff you kind of got to adjust to when you're living in this new environment.
It takes some time, you know. Everyone's living together, but they're getting along okay, it seems like?
Yeah,
okay,
sounds like everyone's doing good.
That's good to know. Their first matchup is up against SK. What are some of the things that they are preparing for when it comes to SK Gaming?
Well, I talked to this team, right, and they were talking about how there's so much pressure on them, how they're supposed to be that #1 team, right, and how everyone's expecting to be so great out of the gate. And I don't think they feel that way. They feel like their biggest weakness is that they're going to need some time to get some synergy. And SK is exactly the kind of team that could punish that because they're one of the few teams that stuck together, right? So now they're going up against a team that has that built-in synergy, and it's a litmus test for them in both of these matches against a team that has that synergy established already.
I think that's a great point. There's so much hype around this team, but they are going up against one of those teams that didn't make any changes. But there's so much star power on this Knights team, right? How could it possibly go wrong when you've got guys like Adapting on your squad?
No, and I'm glad you brought up Adapting because I talked to all 5 of them, right? I'm like, guys, how are you feeling? Are you worried? Are you nervous? Like, are you going to be able to live up to that name? Everyone's like, oh, that's too much hype. Calm down, calm down. It'll take us some time to get together. And I go to Adapting. Are you guys going to win? Yeah.
No hesitation.
I'm like, yeah, anything. It's like everyone else. It's like they're all there in a group. They kind of go one by one. They're quite Adapting. It's like, yeah, we'll win. So it's what you can expect from us. I think that they might be some tempered expectations, yes, but this is a team that still has plenty of confidence.
Well, in your mind, not what the Knights have been telling you, but in your mind, what are some of the things that you think the Knights need to do in order to beat SK in their current situation?
Well, for me, I think what they need to do is figure out who's the voice on that team, right? This is 5 teams that I think have a lot of opinions about how to play Smite, and rightfully earned, and that they want to do it their way. They've got to find a voice on that team. And from what I've been hearing, it's probably a Mulesy who's got to find some kind of way to corral this team, right? To find a way to make sure they're all moving towards the same goal. From what I'm hearing when I talk to them, it sounds like they are on the same page. They're good, but maybe we won't know until they're in a loss, right? Until they're down a couple games in a set or something like that. So even though they're feeling good now, we might not know for sure until they're in an actual set.
I know we'll get your predictions in just a little bit for this once we talk to SK Gaming's correspondent, but overall, do you feel like this Pittsburgh Knights team should be as hyped as they are?
I think that they should be hyped, but maybe not quite as much as they are, at least from what they've been telling me. It sounds like maybe give us a little bit of time to ramp all the way up, not #1 team right away. I actually asked Deathwalker, who do you think's the best team right now? And they said, still Splice. It makes sense that he feels that way, obviously, but
they're the defending champion.
Still Splice. I mean, specifically that he's the one that dropped him, right? So he still has plenty of respect for that team.
As he probably should. The Splice team, of course, looking pretty strong, but they don't play until a little bit later on. Pittsburgh Knights do have 2 matches coming up overall. They also play up against Space Station. What are some of their thoughts about that matchup?
This is a tough week for the Knights, right?
Yes, it is.
SK and Space Station right out of the gate. This is a team, though, that I think that they have some familiarity with. They're not too worried. Remember, this trifecta, well, formerly trifecta, now SK, was kind of unknown. They kind of popped in and suddenly were good.
Sure.
I mean, like Barra and Jeff and Ven and Andy, and these are players that have been around for a while. I think they feel comfortable that they know these players.
Space Station is a team, just like SK, though, that made no changes.
Yes.
The Knights have to go up against 2 of those back-to-back. Do you feel like that is the type of environment where the Knights could really shine because they are a little bit more familiar with these rosters, or do you think that that might end up hurting them in the end?
I think that it's possibly the best thing that could happen to them week 1, is that they go into a team that is communicating well, which I expect that these 2 teams will be, and have that synergy there so they can see if they have that same kind of wall that they're running into, right? Are they having that kind of disparity? It's a tough challenge. It'd be tough for them to come out of here with a 2-0, I think. But if they do, that's huge for this team. They'll really grow.
This team, all the teams are playing in best of 5s this year. All year long, it's going to be best of 5s. No more worried about best of 3. Do you think that this is the type of team that excels in those sorts of environments? Because if I look at the Pittsburgh Knights roster, that's one of the first things that jumps out at me is that this is a really veteran squad, and best of 5 can favor those.
It absolutely can. And from talking with them, that's what it feels like, right? It felt like they were on the same page to me in terms of their mentality and in terms of their expectations, too. Remember, the only one who was like, yeah, we're going to win right away was Adapting. And I think that's just how he's going to be about everything all the time. But everyone else on the team seemed very realistic, right? They're like, yeah, we're a strong team. We're strong players. We'll be good. But like we understand these are other really strong teams. We're going to need a little bit of time. So for me, because they're all on that same page and wavelength and expectations, I think they're a team that has a chance to do really well.
The Pittsburgh Knights, they've got 2 matchups. Again, we're going to do predictions once we've talked to both sides of the correspondence, so Finch has already put his in.
That's right.
We'll have those for you pretty soon. But thank you very much for joining us, John Finch. Appreciate you popping on with us. As I mentioned, we're going to have the SK Gaming correspondent coming up right after this break. But first, we got to give you some information about SMITE's birthday. It's time to celebrate.
I had this feeling no MOBA was right until I found this game, SMITE. Third-person viewpoint, maps are out of sight. It's got me playing all night. So open your eyes, this game is so fly. I hope you land your skill shots alright. If you want pro strats or just a good brawl, you know that SMITE's the game that has it all.
Welcome back, everybody. Make sure you take advantage of those SMITE birthday gem sales because I always get these tweets. When's the next gem sale? It's right now. You don't have to tweet me anymore. Stop tweeting me about it. I mean it. I can't answer them. I never know when the next gem sale is going to be, so just wait for there to be one. That's what I do, at least. But I get paid in gems, so it's a little bit different. It's time to go to SK Gaming correspondent. That is none other than Tom F. Battinger. If you were an SK fan, hopefully this isn't a great disappointment.
Sorry, I was just tweeting at you, asking you when the next gem sale is.
I actually believe that. I thought you were going for an Adam Schefter sort of feel, like, oh, I just got breaking news from Zapman that something was going on from SK. I thought that's kind of the route you were going to go.
Woj alert, here we go.
Woj bomb right here. The dot bomb, that's what we're going to call any breaking news coming from F. so far this year. SK Gaming, last year's trifecta. SK as a whole was in the SPL last year, but had a very unsuccessful team. What is the identity of this team?
Yeah, so when it comes down to SK Gaming, it's very interesting because I think it's very easy to get wrapped up in the fact that Steven Zappis is here, the old school veteran, and that's a big part of it. But I think absolutely the headline here is Sam and Paul. I mean, the SPL, the Sam Paul League, you can meme all you want. It's the real deal. Paul, I have said this, and I don't mince words when it comes down to it. Paul is one of the best talents that we've ever seen enter the league. And while I'm not saying he's the best player of all time, I'm going to put a yet on the end of that statement. I think that if Paul continues to grow, which he still hasn't plateaued, which is insane, he continued to improve at Worlds from the first day of Worlds till they got kicked out. Paul could be all that in a bag of chips. And I think that that is absolutely what you got to look at when it comes to SK.
So much of the talk about this team, though, is that, well, they just had 2 good weeks. They had a really good week at qualifiers. They had a really good week at Worlds. Do you feel the same way, or do you think that this is a team that can perform to that level across a whole year?
Well, I think that the timing of those 2 weeks is very important. The team ramped up, and kind of hit their stride in qualifiers, and then continued to improve. To me, sure, that's 2 weeks, but that's 2 weeks at the end of it. They need to continue that trend upwards, and I don't see anything stopping them, and I think it's absolutely possible.
Do you think consistency is going to be the biggest problem for this team, or do you foresee something else?
I don't think consistency will be the problem because I think that that's what they figured out last season in the spring and the summer. One of the few teams that have stuck together, and I'm not one of these people that sit here and go, oh, well, if you stick together as a unit, you're bound to win. I think that's trash. It's worked a couple of times. This might be one of them.
Have to wait and see on that. But what are the big? So you think it's not Zapman, right? It's all about Paul and Sam.
So it's a big part of it is Zapman's maturity level and ability to acquiesce the power role to Sam and Paul.
Okay.
He's really become this veteran that identifies, listen, I'm good at the leadership. I know I've been a part of winning units. I've been a part of that legendary Dignitas team from pre-SPL. I know what a winning environment is like. I can't shoot the ball from 40 feet anymore. But Sam and Paul can absolutely do that. Paul is going to 1 versus 3 players. Zapman just needs to be able to nurture this young talent, and I think he absolutely can now that he's kind of accepted his role as a veteran.
We've talked a lot about Zapman and Paul and Sam so far, but talk to me about Neil and Scary D, now Belair actually in the solo lane. First of all, a fan of the switch from Scary D to Belair?
Big.
And you're like the don't rebrand guy.
Right.
That's like your thing.
Yes.
Kind of like Hindu Man's a savage. That's how people know him. It's like kind of his thing.
That's what he's known for.
Belair, it's his last name. It's clean. He got it in game. I'm about it. I got to say it.
Speaking of clean, please check out the tweet, by the way. As we take a step away from the X's and O's, SK Gaming, legendary organization, proving it here. Top to bottom uniforms. And it seems kind of lame.
I will say, though, they forgot my shoes. Where were they? I wear 10.5s. They should have known this.
I'm going to make fun of him, but I also wear 10.5. So, Irena, please send him over.
Yeah, for both of us, please.
But on a serious note, a big part of this season is the players and everybody being in-house, and showmanship is a big deal. If you haven't seen it, the players have shoes, pants, jersey, everything matches. They look like they're going to business, and that mentality is a big deal. When you've got a full uni, it's about it.
So you've talked a little bit to this team. How are they feeling going into their matchup up against the Pittsburgh Knights?
Comfortable. As comfortable as you can be with that roster across the way. I mean, when you look at it across the way, it's an incredible amount of talent, and I think again, this is where Zapman comes into play. Look, Paul is going to be confident against whoever he plays against. It doesn't matter. This man, I won't say egotistical. He's just he knows he's that good, and I support that. But Zapman is here. When you look at Belair, when you look at Neil, he's just like, look, man, I've played against Adapting a zillion times. He's going to beat you up, but you got to understand how to roll the punches. Look, Zero's going to do this. They are confident and comfortable, but understand that this will be a tall task.
I know that the SK Gaming team, Zap's been down here for a little bit, but it took a little bit of the rest of them to come together and live in the same house. I think Zap is living a little bit separately than those guys with his wife, correct? How are the team reacting to living all in the same space?
The squad is, I mean, this is a unit that doesn't really need much nurture when it comes to like, some of the other rosters might be a little bit more volatile. When you look at Belair and Paul and Neil, I mean, they just want to kind of hang out, talk SMITE game, play some poker, nothing too outrageous. And I think that all the personalities are kind of on the same page, and that's a really big deal. And for your favorite teams, you've got to look at that outside of the game as well. It's a really big deal, and I think that will help SK in the future.
Absolutely. I know you're being serious because you mentioned they just want to hang out and play poker, and I know that that's absolutely what the SK boys want to do. They're definitely about that life, as am I. So I can get behind that. So the Pittsburgh Knights, I mean, this is a big roster. There's so much hype around them. Do you think SK is buying into that at all, or are they worried about that aspect of it?
Again, that's where Zapman comes in the clutch. He goes, look, we've played against the Cloud9 monstrosity. We've played against the Epsilon 2 back-to-back world champions. You know, we've done this before. And Zap's job here is to instill that quiet confidence. Zap's job is to go, listen, understand that this is a tall task, but we can absolutely do it. So I think that they're there. That's what they're presenting to me.
Sure.
And like I said, that's Zap's job.
For you personally, what are some of your keys? If SK is going to win this game, how are they going to have to do it?
Neilma, Sam and Paul are absolutely they're going to do what they are expected to do. Adapting is going to try and throw a monkey wrench in there. We're going to see what's happening. Neil has to be the standard support that I know he can be. One of my favorite things about watching Neil was his instincts. He just has an understanding. He's going to take the body block shots. He's going to stand in front of the opposition. As long as Neil performs at the level which his instincts tell me he can, that's going to allow him to match up to the dual lane of the Pittsburgh Knights. Because when I look at the middle lane, Paul versus Zeros, I'm fine, dog. The rest of it, there's a lot that I'm fine with. It really just comes down to, can Neil get to that level and carry the rest of the squad?
So we're split down the middle so far. Anatoly and Taco both actually have SK in this one, whereas Hindu and Finch have the Pittsburgh Knights. Where do you land on this matchup?
I think that I think that this will be very close, and it's fun because I think we might just start off with a 5-game set. Don't forget, this is the best of 5, all regular season games. I would go SK here because I think that there's a lot of things in their corner. One, the situation that they've been together for over the season, they're going to continue going on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That said, I do question the longevity, the ability to go for 5 games, and I think it's going to be all up to that 5th game. If you're forcing me to put my money down, I am reluctantly saying the Pittsburgh Knights, but it will be close. And if SK wins, I never said otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. He's the correspondent. He wouldn't possibly do that. Thank you, Tom, for your time here talking SK Gaming. I couldn't really see it. It was peripheral vision.
Gotcha.
As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I got a chance to sit down with Kelvin Benjamin, talk to him a little bit about his love of Smite. Let's take a look. What's up, everybody? Sitting here with NFL wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin, and he's not here because he's a sick NFL player, though that's certainly true, but because you're a big Smite fan. Kelvin, thanks for coming in. What got you invested in Smite?
I was on the Xbox store one day, and I was just looking for Xbox games to play, and Smite came across me, and I downloaded it, and instantly I was hooked.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you like to play? When you're logging in, you're like, man, I really got to get my, for me, I got to get my Zeus fix. So what do you got to play?
I got you. When I first log in, I'm going straight to Arena for the first game of the day, just to get the the jitters out. But then I'm going straight into Joust and ranked Joust, and then just really getting real competitive with it.
Awesome, awesome. What's your favorite god?
Vamana.
Vamana?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're feeling pretty good right now, right? He's in a pretty good spot, at least until that.
He's top tier right now.
Yeah, he really is. Are there a lot of video gamers that you're friends with in the NFL scene and in the pro athlete scene? Is that a big part of it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, when we get home, we pretty much just log on and just all party up and just play games pretty much together.
That's awesome.
Downtown.
Got anyone else invested in Smite yet? Any of your former teammates?
My boy Joe Webb. He went to Texas Houston. He loved it too.
Okay. All right. Is he a mage main or is he still a filthy warrior main like you?
He loved Bologna.
Okay.
He's a Bologna
man. All these warrior players, man. What am I supposed to do with that? This is your first chance to see, skill shot, what we're doing here for the esports thing. I'm sure you're very familiar with what it's like for an NFL broadcast, but is it cool to see the esports side of it as well?
Nah, this is crazy to set up and to see what you guys got going on. Because I sit at home and watch the screens all day, but you don't know until you get here to see, all the pieces that go on.
All the crazy stuff. Have you watched the SMITEPro League at all? The pro scene for Smite? Are you invested in that at all?
More later, once the season kind of gets over in the off season. So that's when the bigger games, win the Worlds.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm tuned in. Then I'm back there, laid back on my love stack. Sometimes I fall asleep, wake up, Smite's still on.
Still on, man. You got to get that replay going. Yeah. I love it. I love it. What are you excited most about for season 6 and all this kind of stuff with Smite?
It's crazy. about the new assault map, the different skins that are coming out, then upcoming new guys that are coming out. I mean, it's just so much, man. You guys do a great job with keeping the new content coming, keeping the game fresh, and just keeping me just entertained.
Got to keep them hooked, man.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Well, I really appreciate you coming in, man. Thanks for taking the time. Hope you enjoy your tour. Kelvin Benjamin, make sure you're rooting for him on Sundays as well. Thanks again to Kelvin Benjamin. Super awesome to get a chance to talk to him. And hopefully he takes my suggestion and signs with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Lord knows we need some wide receiver help right now. Come on, Kelvin, you can do it. It'd be easy to root for him that way, for me at least. All right, now we got to talk some SCL, and for that we've got John Finch joining us yet again here on the desk. So as I mentioned, correspondence, they're going to be happening. Finch is going to be talking Pittsburgh Knights all year long, but he's also going to be your SCL expert. And there's a lot to go over here, Finch, so let's kind of get into it. In North America for Xbox,
yes,
everyone is super excited about Hype Unit, but is it already dying down a little bit for them?
I think that there's a little bit of weakness showing, right? And it doesn't take much for it to show because there's such high expectations for this team. But they had another tough 2-1 recently against Sugar Pea Squad, right? Which is a team that you wouldn't have expected to go that close with. I mean, Teep and Kumquat are kind of the biggest names on that team. And you're like, well, I wouldn't expect this Hype Unit squad to drop to them. So that was one thing. Then they also had that DQ, right?
What was that about?
They just slept through the games. Two people didn't make it. I think it was Inbound that couldn't make it in Wolves. And so they weren't able to field a team to play. So when you're this good, man, you guys got to be able to be there, is from what I'm seeing. You know, you got to be able to be there.
What are some of your waking up tips, Finch? What are, because we can't give them advice.
Yeah.
But
here's what I'll say. There's an alarm, an app that will make you do like math problems or take a picture.
Do you really do that?
I do one where you have to take a picture. So you take a picture in the bathroom, and then your alarm won't stop until you take that picture again. Try that out.
I would never. I would just rage instantly every single time. I'm a big fan of multiple alarms of the same sound, and then one final alarm of a different sound. That's like the wake up now, idiot sort of alarm. Don't take my advice. I'm horrible at it as well. What about on the EU side? What's been going on in the Xbox EU scene?
Yeah, it's actually been kind of crazy over there. So Rival basically got back together, old Rival, minus Vaporish Coast. Now they're Davey. Davies and then Hunter Roll instead of Coast, and Coast is still on Davos Disciples. And they actually matched up right away, and Coast team, the Davos Disciples, didn't end up coming out winning, but unfortunately there was a bit of a problem with that whole scene right around that, with Mango and maybe some countering and stuff like that. We had to make a ruling on it. So they actually ended up getting the win for that one, does Rival, and they go on to win their next match the next week. I think even without Coast, this Rival team right now is looking like the scary one, especially because Davos Disciples got to make an adjustment with their jungler now.
Davey looked a lot better, I'd say, in this week's matchup than he did up against Coast in particular, but
Coast is good.
It's such a crappy situation with Davos Disciples, isn't it? Because just as everyone's getting super excited about this team and wow, they beat Rival, well then it's that because they got back-end information because Mango cheated. I mean, there's all this kind of stuff around it, and it's one of those situations where you almost feel bad, but that cloud is going to follow this team for a long time in my mind. It has to.
I think that cloud is stuck there, but I think if someone can kind of wave it away, it is Coast, right? If Xbox EU kind of has like an up-and-coming perennial star right now, it's that kid, because he's just so good, because he is so young, and there's so much around him. So I think that that's the best thing for them, is if they can just keep winning with him there, if they can play Rival again, more heads up and win that set, then that kind of, to me, alleviates that. That shows that this team is legit if they can do it with that matchup again.
That's the only way to get the monkey off their back, right? Is to prove that they can do it again. Do you think that the Davos Disciples can do it again, or do you think that was such a big deal for them that was a determining factor in that set?
It's tough, because I wouldn't have expected this team to be as good as they were. Mango was a big part of it. He did play well for them, but so much of it does feel like they're able to play around Coast that maybe they'll be okay even without him. It'll just depend on how well this team can get their synergy back up and keep on moving.
All right, that's for the Xbox side. For the PlayStation 4 side, North America, a lot of former talent on the Xbox side that has moved over to the PS4 sticks.
That's right. Shrimp Gang is the roster you're referring to there, right? A team that's stacked up to the brim with former Xbox talent, Jumpa, Covey, some world champions on this squad.
Yeah, not too bad.
Zaxby's on it as well. So this is a team that I have very, very high expectations for. That's why it kind of jumped out at me a little bit that they did have a couple close calls in their matches, right? This is a team that's so talented that I expect them, especially on PS4 where they're newer, for them to be able to win their sets relatively easily.
And that didn't really happen. Do you think that Shrimp Gang, is this a case that they weren't playing up, or is this a case of the rest of the league is just playing really well right now and better than they expected.
Yeah, I think it's the cop-out answer to say column A, column B, though it's true. So to rectify that a bit, I'll say it's 90% that they didn't play to their best and 10% that PS4 NA is just getting better. So I'm leaning a little bit more towards maybe Shrimp Gang wasn't 100% in that set or those two sets, and they can be. I mean, Koi's on this team as well. We keep showing it how much that loss meant to him in finals just last year. So I know this is a guy who's hungry to win, but the way that you win is that you guys make sure that you bring it in every single week. And I think that this is a team that can do that.
Out cold and on the European side of things has looked like the team that we kind of expected Shrimp Gang to be, right?
Yes.
Near the top of the league pretty easily for them.
Yeah, this is surprising to me because PS4 EU last year was very kind of clumped up together.
It was.
So it wasn't one where you expected there to be this big disparity. That's why I made it my headline for this week. Out Cold, man, is way up at the top of the brackets. They're 3-0, and they've been doing it fairly comfortably. And I'm so glad we got Kinder Warrior to look at here first, too, with these replays, because I think he's a big part of why they've been looking so strong in the jungle for this team. I mean, he makes good rotations. His mechanics are solid. I love his decision-making. This Out Cold team seems head and shoulders above the rest. Right now, if you're in PS4 EU, you're looking up at them.
Out Cold definitely has looked like the cream of the crop so far in the PlayStation 4 EU side of things, and I think that Kinder Warrior is the right player to highlight. He's been playing really, really well in the jungle. The mid laner, their synergy there has been really, really good, and Fatality Fire, of course, in the solo lane has been impressive as well. That's what you get whenever your team's winning a whole lot. We have to name every person in the team because they're all playing really well, right? It's TPC, it's all these guys that are just playing very well for them. Do you think that they will do you think that they're just playing hot right now, or do you think this team is good enough to dominate the region over an extended period of time?
Well, if I'm just basing it on last year, I would say that they must be hitting a hot streak, right? Because it didn't look like there was this team that was clearly that far ahead last year.
Sure.
But they're playing so well. It's not like it's cheese strats or getting lucky in a couple of fights. This team is farming better, picking the right fights. Those are the kind of things that can continue, I think, to be successful for you moving throughout the season. So I'm high on this Out Cold squad right now.
Let's take a look at those standings so you can see all the teams that we're talking about heading in to the next week. That'll be week 4 of competition. This is the Xbox North American standings. Hype Unit, as you mentioned, 2-1 because alarms did not work particularly well for them. That's a head-scratcher, to say the least. As for the European side of things, Rival sitting undefeated because of that competitive ruling over Dabo's Disciples. Those are the teams that we all kind of expected, though.
Yes.
It's Rivals / Dabo's, and then Hype Unit is really the big one on the Xbox side of things. As for the PS4, as we mentioned, North America, Shrimp Gang, the only undefeated team, but there have been some close calls for them so far.
Yeah, there certainly have, and I don't want them to take it like I'm really ragging on them. They've certainly been playing well, and this is the kind of team, and that's why there's some frustration that they certainly turn it on when they need to. It's just maybe you want them to always have it on, but also maybe they don't need to. They can always just group it together and win at the end.
Quick note for the second place team in North America for PlayStation 4, Joltak, one of the players for Cyclone GG, actually stepping down, now moving on to serve our country a little bit. So really appreciative of him for his future sacrifice, and of course all the cool moments he's had playing across Xbox and PS4. So hopefully wish him some luck. Let's look at the schedule for week 4. Moving on, Bedtime's calling up against VGS Gods will be our first game on Monday.
Yeah, that's a big one. Obviously, there's going to be this Dabo's Rival one that's happening that you want to make sure you keep your eyes on. We'll fill you in on how that one ends up going. Hype Unit play again towards the end. Let's see if everyone can make it there for that set.
Seriously.
And see if they can grab that victory as well on Xbox NA towards the end of the day.
So should be some really big games coming up next week. Is there one player you expect to have a breakout week this week in the SCL?
Anyone in particular that I'm looking at? I hadn't thought of it. I want Hype Unit to come out and show that they can close these games out the way that they're supposed to, right? That's the kind of thing I'm expecting. And if I look at Hype Unit, I guess I look at Wolves, right? So maybe that's then who I would focus in on, right? Is Wolves on Hype Unit to show us they can clean these sets out, and they really are as far ahead as we think. Because I don't think they're just the best in that region. They should be the best on console, period. Right?
Agreed.
Is where I think of that team, and they got to show us that.
I completely agreed with you. SCL correspondent John Finch, thank you very much. We'll be right back. We're going to be talking to the Dignitas correspondent next. That's none other than Graham Hindu Man Hadfield.
The Savage.
Team up, play God. SMITE on Nintendo Switch. Download for free on the Nintendo eShop today.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time to move back towards the SPL as Dignitas has a game this week, and a pretty big one at that. And for that, we've got Hindu Man here to talk to us about it. Hindu, Dignitas finally all here.
Yep.
They finally made it across the pond. Well, almost all of them are from across the pond. How are they feeling finally having moved in and everything's fine?
You ready?
Yes.
Today, I've just been in the break room with them. There is turmoil.
Breaking news?
Turmoil in the break room.
Man.
Already, Trixtank has gone out and bought lunch for only him, Cuvo Fred, and Variety.
What's that about?
And Biggie and Hurrywind are sat there with no food.
What about Ataraxia?
Ataraxia is about to be on the show to give a spoiler. But because of that, that's why the team are waiting for dinner. And it's got all out the window now.
Well, where did Trixtank go?
Zaxby's.
Zaxby's.
Europeans went to Zaxby's and they didn't get the Australian or the North. It's terrible breaking news. I'm sorry to give you, but oof, it's a terrible start. Let's put it that way.
Talk about team synergy down. That is horrible. I feel so. My heart goes out to Big E and T.
Further on the team synergy, they are all over in the States. They've managed to get themselves together. Still a couple of issues with getting scrims for themselves organised as their housing situation is still being worked on. They've got a place to stay, but they've not got a permanent residence just yet that they can call their own and get all their setup stuff. So it's a little bit tricky for them to find the scrims in time, so they're having to use their studios a little bit more.
Yeah, I've seen them around a lot.
So earlier on this season, it may be that sort of thing for the first couple of weeks, but they're making do.
Yeah, I mean,
like good players can.
It's not like there's not good practice available here at the studio, right? I mean, they've got so many options with teams here and available. What are their feelings on their expectations to start the year?
I'm quietly confident, and they're more than anything, they're looking to try and show the actual audience that this is a good team. A lot of people have been talking about whether or not Nate and Trixtank will have synergy in that duo lane, Ataraxia, and how Hurrywind will play, considering he's expected to be good, but he's never really lived up to the expectations of the audience. And both those players themselves, with this core, are looking to prove them wrong this year.
Who do you think is the biggest question mark on this team? Is it that duo lane and how well Ataraxia and Trixtank will synergize, or is it Hurrywind?
I think it's more to do with just the whole team as a whole, coming together of the understanding of what they want to do. A lot of all this team has creativity and they've got a nice little balance to them. It's just making sure everyone gets a fair voice and then they come to a decision as a group and follow the instruction. I'm not worried about anyone individually right now. Specifically with the meta about to change too, with the new patches coming out, we're going to see differences in the duo lane, which I think will be very interesting because this team could adapt very quick.
Yeah, Ataraxia and Trixtank, definitely two of the more seasoned veterans, of course, but also two of the bigger thinkers about the game, I would say, and how to theory craft and make things work. Do you think that this team, I've seen a lot of discussion about this Dignitas roster. I've heard the phrase maybe lower consistency, but higher ceiling than last year's Dignitas team. Do you subscribe to that?
I can completely understand where people are coming from with that in terms of like they may not be the top tier of players on paper, but as a team they will unite and do well. I think they're going to be at least top 3 this year throughout, if not pushing onto the top 1 spot, but it just depends how the rest of the league plays out. Scrims so far, I did get some info on scrims.
Oh, okay.
Straight from their mouths today. Okay?
They're winning them all, aren't they?
Trixtank said they're poo.
Oh, they're losing them all.
Said Clown Fiesta.
Okay.
And Biggie responded with productive.
Total
so
classic coach speak right there.
That's me trying to correspond with the actual words out of their mouth, and that's the situation I'm bringing to you all at home.
There you go. 2 out of 3 say they're losing them all, which is usually a good sign. And the coach says they're productive, which can be losses.
Trix did add at the end, though, however, you can say this, he said, listen, you can just let them know that our solo laner was going 2-14 and we were still winning games.
That's best case scenario, is that he gets to roast Variety and still say they're winning.
It's a win-win. And the thing is, I get to go to them and go, so what do you want me to say about you this week? And they tell me this stuff. It's great. I don't have to do any work.
This new format's great, isn't it?
It's amazing.
I think it'll work pretty well. Their first matchup of the year, Space Station Gaming. How are they feeling about that?
I think they're quite confident. They've got a lot to prove, though. And they're not resting on their laurels, so to speak. They are still scrimming. They're doing plenty of practice for this. And they're aware Space Station have stuck together, so they've had a bit of an easier time of scrims. They're a little bit cautious of this because of the fact they've not had as much time with Hurrywind to play at natural ping that they're going to all be on, because obviously him being North American and them European, it's been a little bit more awkward for them. But they're quietly confident, I'd say. Like, you know, they're erring on the side of caution still and preparing very well, but they're very interested.
What do you think about this match? Just outside of what Dignitas is telling you, where do you think the keys for victory are for Dignitas?
Realistically, it's just make sure just one person is leading this team. Well, whatever they've been doing in the scrims, they should just be having one person to lead and follow the instruction. Win or lose, as long as we can see that those mechanics are all good to go in terms of the team are going to follow one instruction, they should be good for the long run.
This is a team that has a lot of expectations, but I think a lot of people are rightfully excited for them. Of course, Ataraxia, a big part of that. Graham, thanks for joining us on the Dignitas section. We do have Ataraxia standing by with FDOT to talk about this week's matchup.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's FDOT. It's Ataraxia. What's going on? What's going on?
Just in the middle of some practice, take a break to do this, and just getting ready for our game tomorrow against SSG.
Awesome. Now, I think this is the coolest part about the whole damn thing is that here, season 6, you're a European player. We wouldn't be able to do this. I think that's one of the coolest things. Is first of all, the boundary between North America and Europe is busted, and you're the headline. You're a mid laner.
Harrowwind?
Yeah.
He's American, so it's not that good, you know, but we're hoping that because he's surrounded by 4 European players, eventually he'll just get some of that talent by osmosis. You know, that's the thing, right? That's the way that works. But no, he's been really good so far. He's got he thinks a lot about the game. He talks a lot about the game. And it's just good, you know. There's always some ideas flowing about how to approach scrims and whatnot, and he's definitely very good for the conversations on that.
It's interesting because I love that throughout that whole description, you never once mentioned there doesn't seem to be a barrier between the two regions now that it's all one league. When you guys were looking to source players, was that a thought? Were you guys looking for European talent or looking for North American talent specifically?
We weren't that fussed. The most important thing for us was to find someone who would fit in well. Being in a house together, we really put a lot of value on the social side of it, you know, because we actually have to live together. It's more than just SMITE, and I think that's going to be the one of the biggest factors that teams haven't really considered by the end of the year. How much teams improve, it'll be because they get along together outside of the game and they're friends. So Tyler was someone we thought that we definitely get along with. Harry, we already had a chance to play with him at the All-Stars last year, and he was very adamant that he would be the perfect pickup if he was given a good team or environment, you know, to succeed.
Yeah, you know, I know Tyler a little bit. I know you a little bit. We've done this hundreds of times at this point. It seems like a good match, and I think that's really important. And I'm not surprised that you were right away thinking about sort of the social element of it. You know, the team online is a little bit different. Everybody always likes to say the team is a family, but specifically now, I mean, it absolutely, literally is. You guys are living together. You guys are squadding out outside of the game through and through. So when you look across the way at some of the other teams, I mean, is that something you guys is it always just X's and O's, or you're kind of thinking about that dynamic as well?
I think we definitely put a lot of thought in the dynamic. In the past, you always it was a bit easier, I suppose, in some ways, and more difficult depending on the players. But after scrims are done, you turn off your computer, you walk away, and then you don't have to see people. So if you're pissed off with someone, you don't have to see them. But here, you actually have to. You know, if everyone's scrimming in the same room, you're gonna stand up and you're gonna see them and you're gonna lock eyes, and then it's a bit. So people have got to learn to work together. And I think some teams will be better at that, and some teams might be worse.
We heard that. I got a chance to interview Splice after they had won, and that was the first thing that they said was that, you know, when we moved into the Kabam house in the summertime, I used to just log off of TeamSpeak and I wouldn't have to deal with it, but now there's Divios. You got to talk to him. So that's a really interesting element to me, going forward, because esports generally has this transient feeling where it's like, oh, we got a player. Well, third week into the workout, here comes Moswall, here comes Flippo, or whatever the hell's going on, right? Shout out to Flippo, by the way. But now, does it feel more concrete? Do you feel more pressure to work with the roster you have?
For sure, yeah. I mean, with all the visa issues that have happened so far, there's definitely this is a roster you need to believe in. You know, as people give up a lot to move over here, and you've got to have a lot of faith in that core. So I think the rosters that have formed haven't been done lightly. That's why teams haven't done some roster changes like SK and SSG. They know they work, and they know in that environment they'll improve a lot. Splice are actually a really good example of that. You know, because they went from zero to hero, and that was because they teamed up. So. Personally, I'm so excited to see where SMITE is at the end of this year, because 10 teams doing that, you know, will they even be a bad team anymore? Everyone should be pretty sick. So.
That's kind of where I'm at. And before we move on, I want to ask you one last thing about the feel, and I'll give you an anecdote of my own. Casting at home, Dry Bear, and everybody over Skype or whatever. That's one thing. But then coming in here, putting on the suit, and going and sitting down next to Bart every day. This became a job. Now you guys have taken this very seriously. Now you're coming in every day wearing the uniform like you are on LAN. Wear the uniform, come in to the studio itself. What's that feeling like, and will that change your game?
I love it. I think it will definitely change the game. Scrims are scrims. They're very different, and I think that we're practicing towards a more accurate play style that you see at LAN, and people are going to get a lot of practice on that, and it just feels more authentic, you know. It kind of still feels like we're just turning up for a LAN, but as it settles in and stuff, and seeing all the studios and all the changes, all the content that we've been brought in to do, it's like it feels like a job, and it feels awesome, you know. Like I think this is going to be a huge year for SMITE.
Change to the best of 5 also going to be a big deal. You're definitely going to want to watch that. Good luck to you and the team. I think you guys have a fantastic setup. Really excited to watch Team Dignitas, Ataraxia, of course, in the carry role. No solo Sylvanas, mister.
What about ADC?
Thanks a lot, Ataraxia. We'll catch you after this.
Thank you very much, Tom, and of course to Nate for taking some time and skipping out on Zaxby's for us. No one should have to be asked to do that ever for any reason. It's time for us to go to the North American Minor League, and let's take a look at those standings so you can be acquainted with what we're about to talk about. Armada's been dominating. There you go. That's been the entire league so far through the first few weeks. Space Station Gold, on the other hand, has struggled a little bit. Team Cryptic and Sanguine pretty much even in the middle. Armada, of course, sitting at 3-0, actually. Space Station Gold 0-3. It was Team Cryptic, I do believe, that ended up winning in Week 3 as well. A little bit of an update for you on those standings. But to give you a further update on what's happening in the North American SML, we've got Anatoly standing by with us. Anatoly, thank you for joining us. Is it as simple as Armada's the best?
A little bit. I'd say that individually, they are so talented. They've been able to really just perform at a different level. A lot of them have so much SPL experience. I mean, Scream winning Worlds as well. Baskin being, the cream of the crop, the Baskin player. Fun fact about him so far throughout these 3 weeks, averaging less than 1 death per game.
That's absurd.
That is pretty crazy, actually.
Hey, did you know Baskin's good at Smite?
I didn't know until I actually saw him play.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't a true believer, in Season 2 where he joined Cloud9, in Season 3 when he continued to be in Sword Gaming. But now in Season 6 in the minor league, I'm a believer.
He's looking pretty good. That's for sure. Baskin has been dominating alongside the rest of Armada, but it hasn't just been him. I mean, as you mentioned, Screams looked great.
Oh, yeah.
I think Gino's done very well in the support role as well.
He has as well. Specifically Scream, he's the #1 in all of kills in the whole minor league category. Not only him,
surprise me.
but also Snoopy and Baskin. They're combined top 3 of 7 in the minor league in the top kills categories. It's just absurd what Armada's been able to do collectively. Gino in that support role as well has been flexing very well. Homie Efe even stepping in from time to time,
twice in a row,
covering for Gino, covering for Meerkat. So it's uncertain of what roster of Armada you're going to get. You're just going to know that this roster is here to play and win games.
They're probably going to win. Yeah, that's basically the end of the day with Armada. On the other end of the spectrum, Space Station Gold has really been struggling. Why do you think that is?
Well, the thing is, they're still looking for the plays. You got to give credit to where credit is due. They're not afraid of the names of Armada, for example. They're going to take these risks and calculate them and try to look for it. I just think that there's a lack of execution. There's something missing. I don't know if they just need to practice together more. The synergy needs to build up more between these 5 groups of players, specifically looking at Chapo. He's made great rotations in the early game, but it's just not enough when your team has been dying as much as them, because when they look for the plays combined, I looked up the stats that 4 of their 5 players are in the top 8 of the death category, and that's not something that you want to be having for the minor league already approaching week number 4. They just need to clean things up a little bit more.
Yeah, that's definitely not the stat you're necessarily looking for, but at the end of the day, I do think there's a lot of talent on this roster. A lot of the question marks for me coming into it were how well are Chapo and Mask going to work together, and what about the duo lane? Oswald and Matty Pocket, definitely the 2 with the most to prove in my mind. Which of those 2 groups do you think still needs the most work?
I think that a little bit of not necessarily the laning phase at all. I think Mass is great in the jungle. I think that Oswald and Matty Pocket are great in laning phase, but once the team fights start happening, that's when this team crumbles. Matty Pocket has been able to help Oswald get first bloods in the laning phase whenever a team steps up to them a little bit too aggressively. So they're using that to their advantage. It's just collectively, they seem to crumble after the 12, 15 minute mark where objectives need to be called, where teams are just a little bit one step ahead.
It feels like a lot that they're 0-3 already, but you do have to look at the fact that they've only just played each team once. So I do think there is some room for improvement when they get a better look at, the cryptics of the league a second time around.
Yeah, this is going to be their opportunity to get that revenge. They really need it too, because being down 0-3 approaching this second half is just not the way you want to start it. But players within the team has the experience of the SPL console for Chapo winning the last previous Worlds. I think that this is their opportunity to take this as fuel to kind of make sure that this doesn't become a repeat performance.
Hopefully Space Station Gold will be able to bounce back on the second half as we get ready for the SML side for Europe. We'll go to a quick break and be right back with the other half of the SML.
Team up, play God. SMITE on Nintendo Switch. Download for free on the Nintendo eShop today.
Welcome back, everybody. It's time to go in to the European side now of the minor league. For as dominant as Armada has been on the North American side, Europe has been incredibly close so far. And in fact, coming into week number 3, everyone was knotted up at 1-1. The whole league had tied up with one another. But after week 3, things were looking a little bit different. Out Cold was a team that everyone was super excited about. It's got Dimmy and it's got Pretty Prime and it had Emilito, but he's since moved on. But Out Cold has kind of been cold so far. They haven't really been too impressive. And to talk about Out Cold and the rest of the European minor league, we've got European minor league correspondent Taco. I don't know. It's just like so fun to just like build it up and then go.
And then you just
Taco.
Toss it over.
Taco's here. Taco, what has been going on with Out Cold?
I think that it definitely didn't help the team by any stretch of the imagination. The fact that they've constantly been having to shift their roster around. Emilito not being available for the first few weeks of competition, and then being announced on week 3 that, you know, Half Devil is now going to be our permanent support player. Emilito's no longer with us on the squad. He's going to be stepping down. And so with that in mind, I think that this is where we might start to see some of that transition period for Out Cold, because they're finally going to get some consistent coverage and some consistent practice, I think, is the big thing that I'm really looking at here, because when you're constantly shuffling players around, trying to make the best adjustments for your substitutes, you're not necessarily playing to your team's strengths. You're typically having to factor in the weaknesses and then looking for ways to kind of override those and just bring your best quality of play. So Half Devil now, he's somebody who is very familiar with competitive levels of play. He's dabbled in SPL, he's dabbled in minor league beforehand, and he's certainly not a foreigner to the European scene by any means. So I think that this is a solid pickup for the team. And especially considering the fact that they are aware of like what Half Devil is going to bring to the table, they can start working, I think, towards building Half Devil, I think, into a more consistent player. Because one thing that has been a large issue, I think, for Out Cold, just in general, is that they haven't had a chance to really find their consistency streak yet. But now that they have a chance to finally develop some real team synergy, we might start to see them build up their standing level.
I just feel like if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that their support would be a rotating door for the first few weeks, I would say, okay, they'll still be 3-0. Do you think that it really is just playing with different support players, or what else could contribute to their 1-2 record?
I think it's largely just the fact that I don't want to call it the SPL graveyard by any means, because it's not like these are pros that, you know, weren't willing to get picked up for teams. They're just players that for various reasons, you know, they just weren't available to actually make that move, or just not having the time for the flights and everything like that. And it's totally understandable, but there is a steep level of competition right now in the European minor league that I don't think we've ever really had a chance to witness before. And with that in mind, I think that teams like Out Cold, despite having star players like Pretty Prime on the roster, it doesn't really make all that much of a difference when every single team seems to have a star player of their own. When you look at Flashpoint, immediately Johnny's probably one of the first names that'll jump to mind. When
Absolutely.
You look at all in all, like as a whole, I think that the European minor league has a chance to be in its most competitive state yet here in Season 6, just because of how much former experienced players are jumping into a lot of these rosters.
What about the rest of the league, though? Where do you think if Out Cold is the power vacuum, so to speak, everyone is expecting them to be at the top, how do you think the rest of the league has reacted, and who do you think might take that #1 mantle?
I think that right now Flashpoint have definitely set themselves up in a great position to possibly become the #1 European team. I mean, this is a team that had a lot of members from Optimus Gang that have then combined, into Flashpoint now, and it's really interesting to see. But I honestly think that the level of skill that Outcold and some of the other rosters have brought is starting to force kind of everybody to get better. It's like the energy effect, I like to call it, because back in the day, prior to the season 2 takeoff of the European Pro League, I think that Emilito adapting and those guys, they made a serious difference in the overall competition state of Europe. And because of that, we saw the whole of Europe begin to rise. And now it's a trend that Europe is very competitive with North America. There isn't really too much separation, I don't think, of the regions any longer. Now it just comes down to which teams are able to build that team synergy better, in my opinion. But I definitely think that Outcold is good for making everybody kind of work for it a little bit harder, because you can definitely tell how dedicated some of these teams are to making those improvements. And like I already said, Flashpoint definitely looking hot so far, and this clash between them and Simplicity is going to be a huge set, because these two have, I think, been going neck and neck for a while now in these first few weeks, and now that we're starting to hit that midway or early heading into the midway point, I think that these teams are definitely trying to continue building that separation in the standings.
Flashpoint, Simplicity, the top 2 teams. That'll be your second game on Tuesday. Simplicity's looked great. I think Maniac has really stood out for me as a real standout member of that Simplicity squad. I'm excited for that matchup. It's going to be a pretty good one. Europe shouldn't be quite as knotted up as they were going into this week as we close at the end of next week. Of course, tune into Esports Weekly so you can find out what happens. Oh, actually, you should still watch on Tuesday and then come to Esports Weekly to hear us talk about it. That's what you should really do. We're going back to the SPL right after the other side of this break. We're going to be talking Space Station with their correspondent. But first, a quick look at an awesome documentary around SMITE.
This is for a chance to go to DreamHack.
My name is Connor Eccles. Online, I'm known as Jigs. I play support for Counterlogic Gaming and SMITE. I don't feel like balancing life with games is really too hard for me. It just feels like a natural balance that I've always had. As far as the actual World Championship goes, we're going to take it one game at a time.
Again, stay tuned for more information on that. Apologies about the audio, of course, but it'll all be cleaned up whenever it's time for release. And time for us to talk about Space Station Gaming. And for that, we've got Tom F. Vadinger right back in the correspondent seat. You're much taller now because Taco was in your seat a moment ago. Hey, now you're back down to normal levels. Space Station Gaming.
Sure.
They've got 2 matches this week. It's going to be a tough one for them. So I've talked about Space Station with both Finch and Hindu because those are their matchups in Pittsburgh Knights and Dignitas. And the big note that everyone's saying about this team is that, well, they stuck together. It's more of the same.
Sure.
Do you view that as a positive or a negative?
You know, it's interesting. Throughout the course of these guys' careers, I would view this as a negative, and I'm not shying away from that. However, I think the big but is the fact that this is Season 1. This is a new league. If it was up to me, I'd rename it. I mean, the SMITEPro League now, no North America, European border, so the meta is going to be messed up. The players are going to be mixed up. This is a whole new experience. So, yes, it's the same team, and because of that, the synergy levels and all those nice buzzwords are intact. And all the negatives, the fact that they haven't won, they haven't really had a discernible improvement, I think that is besides the fact, because this is new territory. So my answer, while nuanced, is no. I don't think it's an issue.
What is the team feeling like with everyone coming in and moving in and all the changes that you just mentioned? How are the Space Station players feeling?
That is always the easy question. These guys are comfortable. I mean, Jeff and Barra love each other. Obviously, this is. I was just talking to Ataraxia. I mentioned the team becomes a family, and sometimes this team has been a family for literal years. Jeff and Barra, obviously the standouts, but Anister fits in there. Aquaman has really become a part of that unit, and Venenu since the trade. When we look towards that E-United SSG trade, that trade was mainly about personality. Ven fits in with these guys, and this is really one big happy family.
Space Station has 2 matches, as I mentioned. First up against Team Dignitas. What do they think about this Dignitas roster? Because they've had some problems with European teams in the past, but there's a little NA sprinkled in there now.
Yeah, I mean, they know Horrorwind a little bit better. This team Listen, they're always going to tell you that they're very confident. If you want a little bit of my personal insight, I think they are a little shaken, but this team is never. We've worked with squads that will tell you, we're just not going to win. That's not where they're at, and I think that's a really big positive if you're an SSG fan. They understand it's an uphill battle, and they nervous is a word I would use, but confident still.
What about Venenu? You mentioned him a little bit ago alongside Aqua and Andy, and Jeff and Bear are always the two that are put together. But Ven joins this team towards the end of last year, has some speed bumps, I'd say. How is he feeling coming into Season 6?
Ven's a playmaker, and he knows it. And I think that he is upset. Yeah, that might be a strong word, but he definitely wasn't as happy with his performance towards the end of the year as he wants to be. But similar to what I was saying about SK is that the ramp started towards the end of the season, and it will continue into this season because of all of the other variables around it. Again, I'm gonna return to it. Ven's a playmaker. We see that on the stage. We see that behind the scenes as well. And I think he's just ready to get out there and prove it.
Do you think that he can find better synergy with Andenster? Because
Yes.
it did seem like it took them some time to get on the same page.
Yes, I cut you off intentionally because there is absolutely more synergy. Just being able to be with the unit, be there. They have a new coach, Plasma, next to them. That's really helping them out as well. And stuff like that, just having the coach for a team that historically really hasn't had, they had Quinny once upon a time, Quintosh, and it doesn't
much more X's and O's.
Exactly. Plasma feels like a more, and no disrespect to any of the folks that have worked with this team before, Plasma feels like a more holistic person to really help this unit succeed as a squad, for sure. Absolutely.
Pittsburgh Knights is their other matchup. That's going to be a tough one. I mean, everyone's so excited about Pittsburgh Knights. Are they excited about playing up against them?
Excited, yes.
Excited to get it over with, or because they think they can win?
Yeah, a little bit of both. It's interesting. When you look at Team Dignitas, that's a team that I think that they're a little bit more nervous about Dignitas because Dig can be a squad that just brings out all this raw talent, whereas the Pittsburgh Knights are so absurdly celebrated that there is an inevitable chink in the armor, I think, and SSG kind of is feeling that for sure. So I think, despite the fact that you might rank one of these teams higher than the other, Space Station a little bit more comfortable going into the Knights match.
So everyone else on the casting team for their first matchup up against Dignitas, save for Taco, is siding with, well, they're both kind of black and gold, with Dignitas. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I think this one goes to Dignitas. Space Station Gaming, I think that they will find their success in the later portion of this first one. What is it, 13 weeks? I think once we hit week number 4 or 5, they'll really hit their stride. Listen, Dig, and I'll say the same thing when you ask me later, it's just raw talent. They're going to be able to come out swinging 3 bats.
If Space Station does end up beating Dignitas, what will have been the difference?
The biggest difference here is absolutely going to be Venenu. His rotations, most importantly. Jeff and Barra are strong there, but Dual Lane is a tumultuous part of the map right now. I know that we haven't really seen some of the Pro League players just yet. That's why you got to tune in tomorrow. But I've been able to kind of catch some of the stuff behind the scenes, and I think it really revolves around that mid laner kind of helping out.
What about their matchup against Pittsburgh Knights? If they're going to be able to win that game, do you think it's still Venenu that's going to be the difference maker?
I think there's a lot of weight on Andenster's shoulders specifically. Adapting can be, he's King Kennett, right? That guy's going to be a really big thorn in the side. And so where with the Dignitas match, I'm looking more at the left side of the map. With this, I'm looking more towards the right side of the map. I need to see Andenster and Aqua really, really bring out the good stuff because that Pittsburgh Knights team, man, adapting in the jungle is just really that scary.
I will say that this roster of Jeff, Barra, Andy have had a lot of experience up against adapting in the past, but it's usually been losses that they come out with, but very close ones at that.
Yes.
Do you agree with the rest of the casting squad that it will be an L for Space Station?
Bingo. Pittsburgh Knights likely taking this one, and let it be known that I don't find myself coming on this show and predicting SSG losses all that often. I think that when you look at now that we have a longer season, strength of schedule is something that we're going to be talking about a lot here. Going up against the 2 strongest, arguably, teams in the league right now, day one, it's going to be rough, but they're going to learn from it. They're going to bounce back, and this is a team that's going to be able to figure it out.
That's a nice circle you drew right there. I will say that you may have drawn the shortest straw, not because talking about Space Station stinks, but because now that you've predicted Space Station to lose games, the community is going to hate you.
It happens.
Can't win them all. That's what I always say. Thank you very much, Tom, for your time on Space Station Gaming. They've got a tough week ahead of them, but they might be able to pull out some victories. We'll certainly be watching tomorrow and Friday to find out if that's the case. We're coming to a close pretty soon here on Esports Weekly. You've got a couple more breaks to get through, and on the other side, we'll be talking about some awesome community stuff happening. But first, some information on a way that you can really put your SPL knowledge to the test.
Hey everybody, Agro here. This year's SPL is going to be amazing. Having all the players here and on LAN, it's going to be a blast. But I've got something else exciting to introduce to you as well. Fantasy esports are coming to the SMITEPro League. The fantasy picks platform Prize Picks is challenging you to put your SPL knowledge to the test. Users over the age of 18 who reside in eligible US locations will be able to visit SMITEPicks.com and flex their knowledge about our top players. If you're eligible, you'll be able to choose from 2 to 4 players from different teams participating on a match day. The Prize Pick system will assign each player a score based on their predicted performance in that day's games. Then you'll predict whether each player you choose will go over or under that projected score. But you have to answer correctly for each player you've chosen in order to win. If you're interested, make sure you head on over to SMITEPicks.com to read all your terms and conditions and put your SPL knowledge to the test.
Man, I'm all over the place and wearing kind of similar shirts. They both have buttons, I suppose. That's kind of the end of the similarities. As I mentioned, we've got some awesome community stuff, and for that, we have to bring in Offrin, of course, everyone's favorite.
Hello.
What's up? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm ready for SPL to start, though.
I've got good news. What are you doing tomorrow?
I don't know. I thought I was going to take a day off, but
You can't. You're watching SPL because it's coming back tomorrow. We're very excited about it, but that's not all we're excited about. NACE. It's back and doing sweet stuff.
Yes, we are in the thick of the NACE Spring Finals. So we have a bunch of collegiate teams who are competing for gym prizing right now. And we are actually entering the very, very final stage of the bracket.
Okay.
So we have GSU, Georgia State University, and Georgia Tech going up against each other in our losers bracket.
Some local teams.
Yeah,
okay.
some local teams.
All right.
And you can catch some of those broadcasts over on J-Mac Tucker's Twitch.
Okay.
Yeah, our unofficial collegiate analyst.
Shout out to J-Mac, of course.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get a couple of them on the Skillshot channels as well in the near future. But losers bracket, GSU versus Georgia Tech. As soon as that match plays out, the winner is going to go on to face UIUC.
The defending champs, right?
Yeah, well, not the defending champs, not quite.
Okay.
So the UIUC guys were at HRX.
Right.
But wait, was that Meerkat's team?
That was Meerkat's
that was
team.
It. Then they are the champions.
Yeah,
they are
the
defending champions.
But they lost Meerkat. He's playing in the minor league now.
Like, what are you going to do with
He
that?
abandoned his team. Hopefully Berg's still there.
Yeah. But right now, Tesba Carlton, the other team that we saw at the DreamHack Finals,
That's right.
They are waiting in the top of the winners bracket.
So Carlton actually knocked him down, huh? They got some revenge.
I mean, without Meerkat, what are you going to...
I mean, there was no Loki.
Yeah.
Like Meerkat just has this aura about him. You can't really attack it. Now that Meerkat's gone, left UIUC a little bit more vulnerable, but they still have a chance to get some revenge on Carlton for Carlton's revenge, right?
They do indeed. Just double revenge stories.
It's complicated.
Revenge Inception, something like that.
Yeah, Revenge Inception. What's on the line for these players? What are they playing for?
A lot of gems.
Oh.
Yeah. So first place gets about 7,000 gems.
Is that as a team or per player?
I believe that's
per player. I see it right here.
Okay.
That was a leading question.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we do that in the business every once in a while.
So 7K per player, 3K per player.
Purse.
Oh yeah. A lot of good chest rolls with that.
Yeah, seriously.
So 3K per player for second place, and then 1.2K.
Awesome. A lot of good stuff for the NAC. Again, it's on J-Mac Tucker's Twitch, which I'm pretty sure is twitch.tv/JMacTucker, and of course on the Skillshot channels whenever we get our chances. Offrin, which match are you most excited for SPL this week?
Oh, that's a hard one. I'm really excited for
Who's most likely to play Kepri? This is the answer that you're giving me right now.
I don't think anybody's going to play Kepri. I think
they will.
You think so?
There's been a lot of Kepri in minor league.
Yeah, there has been a minor league in SEL, but like those metas usually look so different from...
Here's my prediction. It's been European minor league in particular that's really liked Kepri. So I think it'll either be Emilzy or Trixtank that ends up playing it.
If Emilzy plays Kepri, he's my favorite player, hands down.
Well, then there you go. Pittsburgh Knights.
Yeah.
They could be looking good. Thank you very much, Auburn. Appreciate your time. As I mentioned, we're coming to the close of Esports Weekly. We're going to go over our final standings and what you can expect for next week right on the other side of this break. Welcome back, everybody. That's right. If you haven't heard, Hi-Res Expo is where HRX is going to be. Well, no, HRX, that's Hi-Res Expo. It's going to be a DreamHack. That's the one I was looking for. November 7th or 15th through the 17th. I've clearly internalized these dates already. We're going to see you there. It's going to be an absolute blast. Make sure you get your tickets soon. Get those tickets, you get your hotel, everything like that. It's all going to be nice and easy. It's much more. You get so much enjoyment out of just having it done with, and then you get to come and see John Finch. I don't know why you'd see him in particular, but you would. You'd see all of us at Hi-Res Expo, at DreamHack. We hope to see you there for sure. Let's take a look at this week's schedule so you can see what else is happening in the world of SMITE Esports. It's the SMITEPro League's return. If you haven't been excited enough by hearing us talk about it, I don't know what we can do for you. Tomorrow, 11 a.m., SK Gaming up against Pittsburgh Knights kicks off Season 6 in a best-of-5. Then Dignitas up against Space Station Gaming shortly after the conclusion of Set 1. Then, of course, on Friday, Space Station Gaming up against Pittsburgh Knights. A brutal doubleheader for Space Station Gaming this week. Pittsburgh Knights looking to finish up and follow through on the hype. You can't really finish up on Week 1, but they're going to try. They've got a doubleheader of their own. But before we let you go, I want to give you some of my final thoughts. This year, for Season 6, there's been so much excitement and so much talk about all these players moving down here. And I just wanted to give my quick thoughts because I'm someone who also was living my life at home, doing my own thing, and then got an opportunity to move to Atlanta, Georgia in order to work on SMITE. And let me tell you, from the perspective of some of these players, they don't have that perspective yet because they just moved. But this is an awesome opportunity and one that I'm sure that they will look back on incredibly fondly. This has been an incredible opportunity for me, and I'm so excited that a lot of these players get a chance to move and experience the culture down here in Georgia, and also just spend so much time around like-minded people. That's the biggest thing that was a change for me when I moved down here and started working in esports as opposed to traditional sports. Is yes, in any job you're going to have your people that you agree with, but imagine that your biggest passion, everything that you think about on a day-to-day basis, but when we wake up, you go to bed, you're thinking about SMITE. Now everyone around you is doing the same. It's such a great feeling of community, and to have all the players here and now have more people for me to talk to about SMITE and think about different compositions and the way that teams can play the map, I think it's going to be an absolute blast, and I'm really excited that we get to kick it off tomorrow. It's been a long time coming. Trust me, all of us here at Skillshot have been waiting with probably more bated breath than you guys. We're finally excited to be able to kick it off and get it started tomorrow. Again, 11 a.m. right here, mixer.com/Skillshot. Thank you so much for watching Esports Weekly. There's been a lot of work put into this new format. I want to give a special shout out to everyone who helped. Of course, Tyler, Jennifer, Alex, Jared, and everybody else who ended up helping in production. Of course, all the correspondents. You're going to be seeing more of them throughout the entire year. Make sure you send us some of your feedback, things you want to see more on. We're going to be continuing to improve on Esports Weekly as we move on. It will continue to be on Wednesdays after patch notes, if there are patch notes on Wednesdays, but normally it'll be at 4 o'clock this same time, this same place, probably this same desk, unless someone breaks it, which is a possibility. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.